G'day guys, welcome to something a little bit different than what we're normally playing here on the channel. This is All Will Fall, or at least the playtest of All Will Fall on Steam. And if you're interested in checking the game out yourself, I believe you should be able to request for the playtest access on Steam pretty easily. So I would definitely encourage you guys to do that. The reason why we're checking this out today is because once I played around with this game, I have been, well, for want of a better word, addicted. Completely addicted to it, actually. And I haven't been able to stop playing. So I thought maybe I'd give it a little bit of airtime on the channel. So if there's one way to describe this game, I would say that it has some similarities to FROSTPUNK, but also Flotsam. I don't know if any of you guys have played that game. But also, yeah, I mean, as you can tell, the post-apocalyptic situation is that the ocean has pretty much consumed the planet. So, yeah, it's a very interesting sort of, world and premise. So let's get straight into it, and we'll check out what makes the game pretty unique. So there's a few maps apparently that's going to be available, but we really only have the starting map here to play around with, so let's get into it. Alright, here we are. Our survivors have just arrived by boat. There is a bit of a tutorial that explains how the game runs. I have played through it quite a few times because I've, redone a few playthroughs. So I might fly through stuff, but essentially it is similar to Frostpunk, that you have, a group of survivors, and obviously you're trying to make sure to keep them alive. Everyone needs to be housed, everyone needs to be fed, and everyone needs water, etc, etc. And similar to Frostpunk, in a sense that you've got sort of different factions, so there are different groups that you can control, but also you sort of direct people, or you get people to do stuff by clicking on, the workplaces, and assigning groups of people to those workplaces. So, for example, you've got these piles of wood here, which will actually add a few workers to. So, for example, this one, I'll add a couple, and so on and so forth. Don't really have too many workers remaining here, but I can get an engineer on that one to just gather up the last pile of wood there. So, let's continue. And yeah, our first objective is pretty simple. We just need to grab 30 wood, which will be very easy to do. But I would say that this is the biggest point of difference between, some of the colony survival games that we've seen so far, which is the building mechanic. And it is physics-based, which means that, you have to sort of consider the placement of a lot of these blocks. And obviously, if it's not structurally sound, then what will end up happening is that the entire thing will fall, hence the name All Will Fall. So let's get a couple of blocks down this way, just to start working on the next pile of wood here. This one's a bigger pile, so we should be able to retrieve quite a lot of wood from that. And yeah, to make things easier, if you hold down Control and click on the pile of wood, you can actually auto-assign people to it. The only problem with that is you don't really have as much control over which type of individual is going to be working on said, pile or said resources. So sometimes you probably want engineers working on certain things and workers working on certain things as well. So we do need to build a staircase so that we can get to the water down here. So the game is pretty much introducing us to the building pieces that we can work with. So let's get people onto the water straight away. And, I mean, we may as well grab this pile of wood over here as well. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, another similarity to Frostpunk is at the top right-hand corner, you will notice that there is I guess a time of day system. Now, in addition to this, again, similar to Frostpunk, you have weather patterns. So you can see here in the blue section that we've got low tide, and it's going to give us -3 meters for the sea level, which means that this will uncover quite a few new things under the water that we would want to essentially try and get to, because our survival, at least at the very beginning of the game, will depend on a lot of this stuff underwater, or, you know, all of the wreckage that we can see around us. So let's continue on. And you can actually speed up the time as well. So obviously if you're not wanting to wait around for too long, then you can just speed things along. The next thing is we need to sort out hunger. So the first thing that the game is telling us to do is just get ourselves a storage, I guess, shelf for food. And speaking of storage, there's 3 types. As you can see here, there's water storage, and there's materials storage, and then there's food. So let's get that built. Brilliant. Okay, so we do want to get ourselves some food, so let's quickly arrange that. And I figure perhaps maybe the easiest way would be to just connect this section here, and let's give these guys some staircases to work with as well, just to obviously make sure that it's all accessible. And luckily, the game is, you know, pretty generous with you. I don't know if perhaps maybe they might, you know, introduce a mode where you cannot undo some of the previous mistakes that you've made, but if you do find yourself building something and things start collapsing as a result, then you can quickly undo to, I guess, the last state where you didn't really have a problem, or you can decide to live with it. That's definitely an option as well. All right, so we need 20 food. Our guys will eventually work on that, or actually I do need to assign a couple of people, so let's do that. Now, we're being introduced also to another type of resource. So up here we've got some piles of junk, and junk can be essentially used to build a few more advanced building pieces, and also advanced buildings and such. And really, wood and junk is going to be your primary resources, at least at the very beginning of the game. So let's build out a bit more of a path. So these are ladders. So ladders obviously give you a bit more verticality, but they do slow people down a little bit. So people don't move as fast when they're using ladders, in comparison to using, say, a staircase. Alright, so with that done, I think what we're going to have to worry about next is going to be our housing, because we've got, how many people there? 8 people, and we're going to need quite a few houses for them, so we'll need to plan for that. So we've got these wooden houses. It will house 2 people at a time. Before we actually get the houses in though, I think it might be a good idea to just rearrange the positioning of our storage compartments here. So they don't all have to be in the place that we've designated them initially. We can actually move things around. And yeah, from here we want to start thinking about housing people. And Space is obviously going to be a bit of a challenge, right? So what I've done in the past is I've essentially tried to build on the edges of these, you know, existing structures, and that should allow us a little bit more space in the middle for other types of construction when we need it. So I think I'll put a couple more over this side, and I do need one more, don't I? I think what I'll do is I'll add a couple of pieces of wood there, and I'll see if I can add another house here. Actually, no, that's gonna make the entire thing collapse. Let's see what would happen if we add a little bit more wood there. Will that hold? It looks like it. So let's do that. And I might actually get rid of these two because we now have a pathway to this wood pile anyway. And I can pretty much recover all of my resources without any penalty, which is quite nice. Obviously, you may at some points want to redistribute some of your materials, and you might want to deconstruct things that you no longer have any use for. So that's essentially one way to make sure that you're using all of your materials efficiently. Anyway, we're just waiting for these houses to be complete, and since it's night, people are going to pretty much go in and have a sleep, have a rest, etc., etc. So generally speaking, there's not really a lot of activity that goes on at night. Yeah, I probably didn't really need the additional house there, but I guess, you know, it'll be nice to have that house ready for when we have new survivors join us. Still waiting on getting 20 junk, so we should get there very soon. Looks like the wooden pile is already depleted, so we're gonna want to try and secure even more wood. And based on what we're doing at the moment with our, you know, supporting building blocks, we are primarily using wood. So in the early game, obviously wood is going to be quite critical. Now, while everyone is out of the way, I am going to once again rearrange some of this stuff, just so that we've got a little bit more space to work with, and that these things aren't going to block any pathways and stuff like that. Again, space is a bit of a commodity here. So maybe something along these lines. I think I'll be pretty happy with that. Maybe even further this way. And the reason why I like to move stuff around while people are away is because sometimes you can accidentally knock people, you know, over ledges and stuff like that and accidentally kill people in the process. So you do want to be mindful when you're, you know, removing, you know, bridges and stuff like that, because yeah, people will die. Alright, so what we need next is going to be a lab, and this is going to let us do a bit of research. And as you can see, we're already struggling with space, so we're going to want to place this down when the coast is clear. There we go. Brilliant. Now, the lab, as it suggests, we will actually need some more intelligent people here, so we do need engineers. So we're gonna have to pop in a couple of our engineers in there, and only engineers can man the research lab. So, with the research lab now unlocked, we do have options for research. We are going to get a bit of a quest line on that as well, and I believe they do like to encourage you to try and get the wood boiler first, but I say nay to that. And the reason for that is I think it's going to be much better for us, at least initially, to try and secure more wood. So that's what we're going to work on initially, and as you can see here, we will need a bit of junk and a bit of wood to try and get this done. So let's research that as fast as possible. Yes, here, our first research, and yeah, similar to FROSTPUNK, so you'll have events, and these events, you know, can actually demand different things of you, whether or not it's different resources or another resource here which we haven't really gotten into, which is the influence resource. So sometimes you can sort of settle, you know, issues or disputes simply by using the amount of influence that you have over the colony. Other times you might have to take penalties if you don't have, you know, the required resources to resolve something amicably, or you might do a bit of a balance of both where you might sacrifice one thing for another. So let's have a look here. Since we can research new buildings, it'll be a good idea to think about the most basic resource, water. So this first option here asks us basically to build a water boiler. And the reason why I haven't gone with the water boiler is because the water boiler is going to produce some pollution. Now, pollution is a thing, so you want to be a little bit careful with the placement of polluting buildings, and you can't really keep those too close to houses. And because space is a bit of a commodity, I am generally going to opt for some of the greener technologies that are going to be available down the line. So I'm going to choose this. All of your suggestions are shit, and we gain some influence by saying that. And essentially, I think what this means is that we have a better way of doing things, and that's the reason why we're getting more influence, because we are confidently moving forward without people's suggestions of going with the boiler or wood boiler. Okay, so low tide, and as you can see here, we have reached low tide, and it will reveal resources, so as the tutorial here is showing, but we only have a limited amount of time to secure these resources before the tide then rises again. So I've got things paused out here a little bit, and what I'm gonna do is just like build a pathway to these resources, and we're going to allocate people to start working on them. So yeah, we've got plenty of workers here. I think what we'll do is we'll get some workers on this pile, and we'll get some workers on this pile over here. These are smaller piles, so we should be able to clear them pretty quickly. Actually, I might even pull these guys off and have them work on this instead, because if we can just get rid of those piles, that'd be good. So let's speed things up. And yeah, things are looking pretty good for the colony. Just needing to make sure that we're securing stuff. I would have to say that, in my opinion anyway, the biggest challenge at the beginning of establishing your colony is going to be securing water. And next, it's going to be food. So we will be able to find water and water barrels around, but you will get to a point where you won't find water anywhere else except for water that you produce on your own. So we've got another event here. We've got people. Barely intact boat approaches your city. Someone from your group says that these are good people. We'll have to build more houses for them. Yeah, I do like more people because that's pretty much going to be our workforce. We do need to remove 10 influence, but we did just gain 10 influence anyway. We get 2 sailors and 2 engineers, whereas with this one we get 2 sailors, 2 engineers, and loyalty from the different factions. And, I mean, I don't really see any reason why we wouldn't go for the second option here, to be honest. So we definitely want to build loyalty with all of our factions, and that really has an impact on how much influence you gain, and you will be able to passively gain some influence from different factions, provided that, you know, all of their needs are met and that they're all, you know, feeling pretty happy. Alright, so we already had a house for a few of those people, but we just need one more. Let's get that built. That doesn't seem like a bad spot right there, so let's get that going. And because we've got, you know, a bit more of a workforce now, we should be able to assign people to do more stuff, so let's get to it. More junk down here as well. Okay, our research is done, so we now have the woodcatcher, and this is a building that essentially produces wood for us over time. So I guess the idea is that it just catches wood drifting around in the ocean. So I think it's maybe a good thing to try and get this down pretty early. We need 10 junk and 10 wood for that, and we will need to assign people to work in it as well. So the thing with this building though is that it does need clearance, and it needs access to the ocean. So you do need to sort of think about the placement a little bit. Something like this seems okay to me. I could maybe put it on the edge. Okay, maybe not. Maybe if I add like a couple of wooden support blocks, I might be able to put it on the edge. But I don't think there's a need for that just right now, as we're not trying to squeeze any more houses or anything. So that looks good to me. We'll speed up time, get people resting, and then, you know, building the structure. We will need to assign people to work there as well. Alright, another event here. Our base has been hit by some drifting wood. We'd say great news, and we just get 30 wood, or if we're a little bit arrogant, morons, don't let it go. We get 45, but we have a hit on influence. I don't really think we need to sacrifice our influence at the moment, so I'm gonna save our influence for when things are really dire. So yeah, a nice little injection of wood, always nice. And while everyone's resting, I may as well add a pathway to try and get to some more junk here. Okay, so our woodcatcher is now built. We should be able to assign people to this. I'm gonna put one worker and one engineer, and that should just passively give us some wood. And we may as well assign more people onto gathering junk. And since we don't have anything that we're researching at the moment, it might be a good idea for us to start thinking about the next thing that we should get. So, looking at the water problem, the number one thing that I want to prioritize getting is this, the electric water desalinator. And this should help us get more water without polluting the environment or the air around us. Because there are other options like junk to water or fuel to water, but I don't really think that these two are a thing that I want. There's the wood boiler as well, which we haven't researched. And look, in order to get the electric water desalinator, we're going to need the wood boiler researched anyway. So let's get on to that. We do have 20 junk right now, and we should be securing more junk shortly. Okay, we've got high tide coming in, and we definitely don't want to lose any of our workers here, so what we want to do is just unassign people from any of the work sites that are going to be submerged underwater. People are the only really thing that you need to worry about. None of these things are going to, you know, drift away or anything like that. There are certain piles of resources that will disappear. We'll get into that in a little bit. But also some of the structures that you build, they will remain intact despite them being submerged by water. Alright, so using electricity for junk extraction. So similar to the woodcatcher, we do have a junk catcher. The only difference is though, it will need electricity. So I'm not going to rush into making this immediately because we do need to research it, and not only that, we will need something to power it as well. So there's a few steps to take, which is to perhaps research how to generate power first. This is probably the most critical early event. Give us a boat and we will help. You can deconstruct our crashed boat for metal and sailors will build a new one. Select the red deconstruction icon in the build menu and then click on the crashed boat. Note, deconstructing other buildings will give you back all of your resources with no penalty. So let's go ahead and do that. And once we have the resources from this, we should be able to also get ourselves a boat as a result. And the boats are really quite powerful, actually. Another event here, we are under attack, apparently. Captain, help! The whole sky is filled with seagulls, and they are shitting all over us. So if we sacrifice 15 junk, we can secure a little bit of extra food. If we sacrifice some wood, we can get 20 food. Try catching them with our hands. Yeah. So this is a bit of a suspicious option here because we don't have to sacrifice anything, but I would say that this could be a dangerous endeavor, and that, you know, maybe some people could get injured or something like that. Or there's this, which is going to take a hit on our influence. But I'm thinking maybe we can sacrifice a little bit of junk. We've got plenty of junk sitting around here, so I don't mind taking that hit, plus having a little bit of an extra buffer on food is probably a good thing. So let's just make sure that we're utilizing our workforce as much as possible. Just trying to find a workplace for our 2 additional engineers here, but we might not actually have anything for them for the moment. Alright, so now that the boat is deconstructed, or almost, we are being introduced to the dock. The dock is, as I said, going to be quite important because boats are very, very powerful asset. Let's build a dock immediately. I think, yeah, here we go. So from our production menu. Again, the dock is something that's going to need some clearance. So something like this, where you're getting that green boat icon there. And that pretty much lets you know that the boat should be able to access the dock, and the dock should be able to be accessible with our workers as well. Now, once this is completed, this is another work site that's going to need a specific type of workforce, and that is our sailors. So let's get a couple of our sailors in there, and what they're going to be able to do is unload and, you know, make sure that everything that's delivered from the boats are going to get, you know, offloaded and delivered to storage. Okay, so looks like our research is already done. So that's getting us a step closer to the desalinator, which is good. And I'm going to immediately go into electricity generation. So we've got this hamster wheel. We need people in it, and it'll generate 2 electricity. I'm gonna go for the wind turbines. It'll give us 3 electricity for 1 worker, and I think that's, I don't know, I kind of think that it's pretty critical for, you know, the amount of people that we have. We don't have a lot of workers to spare, so we definitely want to be able to generate quite a bit of energy from the 1 worker. So let's get that researching. Okay, and time to learn a little bit about boat and navigation. So yes, buildings can block the pathway for boats and for people as well, for that matter. So you do need to consider how you're building and making sure that you know, things are still remaining clear for your boats and your people. So I don't actually see anything in the water just yet that we would be able to collect using our boats. However, we should be able to gather up some resources after a storm. So every time there is a storm, that generates new resources in the water. So as you can see here now, we can see some piles of wood. So I think we're going to start with gathering some of these piles of wood. And as you can see, we've got our different workers here, but now we also have the option to add a boat into the mix. Now you can actually gather this with workers, provided that you can build to a point where it's accessible to your workers to do the work and, you know, to collect the resources. But for boats, you don't really need that. We can pretty much just assign the boat to it and it should just go out and do its thing. Now, with boats being accessible now, I will want to pivot our boats to be able to do some fishing for us, because food is already becoming a slight problem. So we'll need to try and address that pretty quickly. Ooh, look at this. We've got a floating pile of wood that's actually pretty close to the side of this structure here. So we should be able to gather that pretty easily. I think housing is a bit of a problem at this stage. So we might want to think about housing people before some of these factions get a little annoyed at us. So are we happy with that? I think so. I'm just a little concerned about placing this right next to that guy, but yeah, he looks fine. Alright. Let's get everything built. And I guess everyone's having a rest right now. So, decorations or house decorations. So this is going to be critical to increase everyone's happiness. So the more decorations you have on a house, the happier people will be. There are a few other things, other mechanics that will also help increase people's happiness, but we'll come across that a little bit later. So it does actually need or use a little bit of our resources here. So, you know, as you can see, one of these roofs will cost us 4 wood, and yeah, so it's really up to you how liberal you want to be, but you just need to be a little bit careful, I suppose, because we are going to need some of that wood to, you know, do other stuff like reach other structures. But I think we should have enough thanks to our woodcatcher here, so maybe I can afford to place down quite a bit. I just like to mix and match a little bit. Let's do that, and yeah, that looks good. Alright, so everyone should be a little happier. And the reason why you want people to be happy is the perk system. So, game's pretty much teaching us a little bit more about perks here. So, more happiness, more perks, yes, exactly. But the higher your happiness meter is for each faction, the more perks will be unlocked. So, as you can see with the workers that we've selected here, the first perk is that they gain +2 carry capacity. For the sailors, they will gain 50% increased movement speed, and for the engineers, gain 5% increased production efficiency. So obviously there are some significant benefits there by keeping people happy. Right, we have free people who can, you know, do a little bit more work, so let's just get them assigned to a few things here. We might want to consider building maybe another woodcatcher. That might not be a bad idea, and we can assign a couple of people to it. So we can, again, get even more wood coming in. So I might do a woodcatcher right there. And sometimes you're going to have to rethink the placement of some of your production structures, depending on the level of where the water has receded to. So okay, now that that's done, let's assign a couple more people there. So we have been given a goal here to try and get at least one of the factions at 15, or 15 happiness, rather. So we'll try to do that. Okay, things are looking good, and I am looking forward to this low tide, because that will give us access to a few additional resources down below, which we haven't completely scavenged. Okay, we've got another event here. A mysterious building. Captain, look at that strange structure over there. It looks like it goes all the way down underwater and there is no entrance at the top. We'll have to wait for the water level to go down before we can figure out what that thing is. Well, I guess we'll just wait. There it is right there. Alright, so our first bit of research on the wooden wind turbines are done. So we probably don't want to worry about energy research for now, because we can use these wood turbines. I am going to go back to food, and I'm going to immediately research fishing nets for boats, because I want my boats being able to catch some of these fishies here that always gather after the storms. So hope to be able to get onto that pretty quickly. In terms of priority, we should actually get some junk coming in. We only have +1 junk at the moment, and that's definitely not enough. And with the water having receded now, it is going to be a little bit tougher for us to get to this pile here. So these people are basically saying we have no access to it. So what we're going to do is unassign them, and we'll get them working on, well, more piles of junk, I guess, because wood, I guess, isn't really too much of a priority now, because we've got a couple of the wood catchers. Although we don't need electricity just yet, I think it will be a wise idea for us to start planning on how we're going to generate electricity. So, looking at this thing, it does say that it needs 1 worker, but it also does say that it works more efficiently at greater heights and requires clearance. So this is a pretty tall structure. I mean, I guess most of the structures are about the same height. So we're going to want to essentially use this as a bit of a platform to try and get to even greater heights. So let's maybe do something like that. And I might do... yeah, I don't know if I'll need a couple. Let's see if we can get away with doing something like that. And then we'll try and get that wind turbine in. Yeah, okay, it definitely holds, which is good. But we do need a way to get up there, so let's get people a pathway up there. And that's good enough for me. Alright, so we need to wait until that's constructed fully. And similar to, I would say, something like Manor Lords, if any of you guys have played Manor Lords, we do need people who are unassigned to do building. So if people are too preoccupied with work, then you will find that, you know, building things and maybe deconstructing things can take a bit of time to do. They might only get to it at night. Let's see here. Building a wood boiler, yeah. I mean, as I said, we probably won't be building a wood boiler, to be honest, so we'll ignore that. But water is already becoming a bit of a problem. As you can see, we're at 28 now, and it is quickly declining. So we can definitely see a water silo up here, and that is 300 water just on its own. We definitely want to try and secure that as soon as possible. So let's plan for that. I'll let time flow maybe at twice the speed. That should be fine. So let's get to it. Now, the interesting thing that I find with this game is that people don't actually need to build some of these supporting blocks. And I find that to be, I mean, look, I guess it's just the way the game works, right? But it'd be kind of cool if you needed actual people to do the work. Oh, here's an example of things not holding. And I'm just pretty much going to undo all that work there. So could be maybe because I need to support it a little bit more like that. Yeah. I don't know if we're going to be able to do this. Oh, yeah, I think so. But this last piece is likely going to cause things to collapse. So instead of having a supporting block, I'm just going to put a wooden path here. Okay, we're almost there. Almost there. Let me see. Okay, that's not gonna hold either. Tricky. Let's rethink this. So I might push that back by 1 block. And I'll see if we can try and reach our destination. Can we do... No, okay. Maybe if we added a little bit. Yeah, okay, we can add a few more blocks there, which is good. Yeah, so I think if we go back to our original idea, I think we might be able to bridge the gap here. So just add a block down there. Hopefully this holds. Not really. Okay. Oh, that is rough. Okay. Let's try... Let's perhaps do one of these blocks instead. Hopefully that's a little sturdier. Yeah, I think this should do it. We'll try using a supporting block. Okay, no. So this is obviously going to be a perilous journey for a lot of our workers there, but they should be fine. Alright, and I probably will just put a staircase here because that'll just improve the movement speed a little bit, and people shouldn't really have too much of a slowdown trying to get the water back home. And yeah, they do have a bit to traverse to get to the water tank, but that's fine. Alright. So our wooden wind turbine is done. We do have a person working on it already, generating a little bit of electricity for us. And that is hopefully going to be in time for when we do our research for the electric junk catcher. Alright, so at this point, I think there might be a little bit of a blockage for our dock over here. And I think it might be a better idea to move our storage to the platform near the dock, or which houses the dock, rather. And that should speed up the process of us unloading from the dock. Research is complete for our fishing, so we should be able to get our boats fishing instead of collecting wood. And I'm going to immediately do that, actually. So what I do find to be a little bit difficult to manage, though, is you do need to find the workplace that the dock, or sorry, the boat is actually working from, and you need to sort of unassign the worker or the boat from it before you can then reassign that boat to do something else, which I think that's a little finicky. I hope that the devs can maybe introduce something to improve that mechanic and to make managing boats and managing your workers a little bit easier. Alright, so people are all working well. I think everything's pretty efficient. I think we should get our next research in, though. And again, we want to try and get to our desalinator here. So we're going to work on the rain catchers. And the reason why I'm selecting rain catchers is because we would probably be able to use rain catchers anyway, rather than the junk to water or the fuel to water option. Because once we do set up the rain catchers, we should be able to actually collect a little bit of water during these storms. And speaking of storms, we should actually unassign some of our guys that are working, you know, below the sea level there, and just make sure that they're not going to drown, obviously. Okay, boat is idling. I guess the school of fish has departed, so we're going to have to just settle for a little bit more wood, and that's fine. Okay, so we've got water gathering here, which is good. Hopefully that'll keep us afloat for a while. I am interested in this, which is a big pile of food. So I want to try and get that as soon as we have the chance when the water recedes again. Alright, so all of the piles of resources have disappeared. Oh, I guess there's a pile of wood over there. We can get the boat on that. But yeah, every time a storm comes through, it pretty much resets a lot of the resources, at least the ones that get washed in and out of the map by the water. And yeah, I'm gonna try and once again reprioritize to fish as soon as we see them. We can have the boat gathering junk as well, but we will need to research that before we can do that, so I won't worry too much. And this junk is actually quite close to dry land, so I am going to actually set things up so that we can just have some people collecting this junk for us. And yeah, I think we've got a few workers that are idling at the moment, so we should be able to get people onto it. Ooh, and this is actually an interesting resource here. This is metal, and metal is a little bit more hard to come by. And considering how much wood we have, perhaps we could make an effort to try and get this. It will be a little perilous though for our guys, but might be worthwhile. Let's do just a couple of pathways here. I think that should give us access. yeah, some early metal won't be a bad thing. Okay, we've got another event here. Please help us. A group with their own boat has come to you. They say that they're looking for a place to stay. Well... we gain influence from this last option, but, you know, I'll select the first one. We're a nice guy, so... but what's most important, though, is we do have an additional boat to work with, and that is really powerful. I do want as many boats as we can possibly get, because as you can see, there are a lot of resources that are just floating around. We do want to still prioritize food, and while we're here, I might also show you guys that with the resources that you have, you can actually open this additional sub-menu that will actually outline all of the different resource nodes that you might be able to have access to. And obviously the number one thing that we're looking for at the moment for boats would be these fishing spots. And you can actually click on these and assign your workers to the actual workplace that way as well. So find that to be an easy way to arrange the work for our boats. And I would have to say that once we get more than 2 boats, we're probably going to want to think about getting an additional dock. We do have someone who needs a house, so we probably want to just think about a place for that person. Yeah, this seems good enough to me, and it's not collapsing or anything like that, so that's good. We do have a pretty significant event coming up here, which is the sea level drop. So this will reduce the water level by 2 meters, and it is as far as I know, this is a permanent sea level reduction, which basically opens up the map a little bit more for us, for even more construction and even more resources, obviously. So we'll definitely be able to work a little bit better once that event happens. A workplace accident. There's been a workplace accident. Someone was injured while working and they're in critical condition. Oh, darn. Okay. We don't have the water. We have the food. We barely have the junk. Unfortunately... yeah, this is a horrible option here. Shut the door. So here's the plan. And then we get 120 foods. So there is cannibalism in the game, apparently. But yeah, I'm just gonna sacrifice the one citizen. Can't be helped. Alright, so it looks like it's taken one of our sailors, so I'm just gonna add another sailor to the dock. I definitely want the dock to be at full strength. Captain, the sea level is falling. Maybe one day we'll be able to walk on ground again. Perhaps, perhaps. Alright, so with the sea level reduction, we should be able to work on some of these piles that we have been trying to work on for a while now. So, but yeah, I guess it really depends on what our priorities are at the moment. So I'm thinking we might want to try to get more food instead of more junk and more wood, because with junk and wood, we can essentially produce that down the line anyway. With food, yes, we can produce it, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult to do that. So let's try and make ourselves a bit of a pathway here, and let's get people working on gathering some food. Yeah, that looks good to me. And yeah, this junk pile is no longer accessible. So let's unassign people and reassign them there. Brilliant. And yeah, this is no longer accessible. We could perhaps try to make it accessible. So, whoops. Just want to be careful with these because you definitely want to, you know, deconstruct in a manner that's going to allow you to retrieve all of your resources. Don't want anything going to waste. Yeah, I think we should be able to access this. Just one more piece. There. We are completely out of wood though, almost. Brilliant. Okay, so we do have our rain catchers. That reminds me, guys, I do need to work on getting our electric junk catcher as well. So yes, we do want to get to the desalinator, but we still have a lot of water coming from the water tower anyway, so we can afford to focus our attention on being able to produce our own junk, and that way we won't really have a reliance on what spawns after every storm. Plus we've got electricity sort of producing already, so we want to obviously try and make use of that. So one thing that you can do in the game is you can actually change the overlay to see through certain levels in case you needed to sort of fine-tune your building or fine-tune some of your instructions. So for example, you might want to instruct someone to, you know, gather from a pile that's, you know, a little bit difficult to see. You can also use it to peek through certain buildings that you don't have access to just yet to find out what might be, you know, within some of those buildings, and that might help you sort of prioritize what your next building actions are going to be. So that's really nice. Okay, it is a new dawn. One of our boats seems to be... okay, it's not idling, it's just waiting for the dock. So, yeah, I guess even with one dock to two boats, it can be a little bit of a traffic jam, I suppose. But I think it's still pretty efficient. It's better than having a couple of docks and sacrificing a couple of sailors for it. Word spreads. Word is spreading about your colony. People are coming here looking for a better chance at survival. Yes, we do welcome everyone. We get a bit of loyalty from every single faction, plus we get another 4 citizens, which I do like. The more citizens we have, the more you know, workforce we have to, you know, do various things. So, and we definitely are going to need more citizens down the line anyway. So let's get them. Let's immediately assign them to do some work. I do want to try and get rid of this wood pile and this one as well. We have one spare person. I'm not entirely sure how we're going to utilize said person just yet. But perhaps what we could plan for is another wind turbine, since we've got a bit of wood. Let's do something like that. And yeah, pretty much exactly the same sort of build that we had on the other side. And we should be able to get the turbine in. There, and let's just build ourselves a pathway up. I'm gonna need a little bit more wood, so I'll have to wait a little bit. Looks like we've got low tide coming up, so that's going to reveal even more to us. So we'll be able to try and figure out what sort of resources we can try and get to if we go further below. Okay, so more junk. Yeah, a lot of junk everywhere. Which is okay. I mean, it's not that important to get junk since we are going to be able to produce our own junk, but unfortunately these guys can't reach this metal anymore. I might want to try and just, you know, have them continue downwards. We could try and build a pathway for them. I just want them out of the way before we start doing that. Hopefully things hold. But because we're sort of being supported by this metal beam here, I think it shouldn't really be an issue. Perfect. So we'll get them back in. And yeah, housing is going to be another thing that we need to resolve again. Let's get the last piece there. Okay. Houses. I'm gonna want to have to think about where I can place more houses in. I think we could probably put a house or two up this way. I do want some space for another production facility though. My junk catcher, for instance, I think I'm going to put it here somewhere. So maybe the last house we might need to put over here somewhere. Let's do something like that, and let's place another house down. It looks like we now have access to junk houses as well. So instead of building your houses from wood constantly, you can actually use junk to make it instead. But yeah, we probably don't need an additional house just yet. So we could probably wait before we need to make another one. I've got a couple of people not really doing anything, so I'm gonna want to try and figure out how to utilize them. What's this? Ooh, okay, this is a little bit more steel here. Probably not that important, and this is something that's not going to disappear with the storm, I don't think. So we will have another chance to get to that. So perhaps maybe let's focus on... Yeah, that's a big pile of wood right there. Or we could go for this. Some more junk. I feel like our junk production is still a little bit low. Maybe we can top things up with that. Of course, things are going to ramp up once we get the electric junk catcher. Let's just tighten things up a little bit here. And yeah, everyone's about to go to sleep. I might also just reorient our research lab while everyone's not in the way. So yeah, I think it makes sense for it to sort of be set up that way. Brilliant. Festivities for the people. People are feeling down right now, but we could change that. How about a small feast to cheer everyone up and gain some personal support? A feast as if I'm the king. Minus 80 food, so that's a big hit, but we do gain 2 loyalty for each faction plus 20 influence. I like it, so let's do it. But yeah, we gotta be careful with those kind of decisions because we could run out of food. That's not really an issue at the moment compared to water though, so I'm just hoping that we'll be able to try and resolve our water situation pretty early. But I think this might be a decent place for us to call this an episode. It is obviously a first look, but I think I might do a few more episodes just to see how far we can get. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, drop me a like down below. Otherwise, stay true, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.